Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whatever time it is. I hope you are having a good one. Welcome back to House Flipper 2 with Rash Decision. If you enjoy this type of content, please leave me a like, subscribe, and maybe even a comment to let me know. Enjoy the video. My beautiful audience, thank you for sticking with me through this ordeal. This was an ordeal. This was a lot more than I thought it was going to be, and I apologize that I kind of stumbled through it. Had to commit an OSHA violation to get some of the exterior completed, but as you can see, everything is now completely refreshed. I do apologize. I was not able to get to the furniture in time, but the rest of the house, minus the furniture and some of the utilities, is complete. I did think about going and putting in the bathrooms, but I'm going to leave that out entirely just so that I can get done with this little mini series and get moved on. So as you can see, the entire exterior has been refreshed. I didn't skip anything. That was done in the first episode, I believe, that I ran through. Make sure the entire exterior was done. There was a little spot right there that I forgot, but I'm not going to worry about it at this point. It's not enough to cause me any grief. So as we go in the front door here, just as we did in the original review, everything has now been refreshed. It's got lights. It's got everything we could ask for it to have in this front little foyer area. My idea for this area, because there's this nice big open space right here and it connects directly to the kitchen, this should be a dining room. So we walk in, you have the nice big dining room, you have all the portals going to the rest of the house. This is actually a really, really cool design using this primary hub and portal methodology with a foyer like this. The only thing I would change if I were to redo this in order to make money specifically is I would move the walkway here, the catwalk. I would actually move it over so it would be centered, because I didn't realize that it is actually not centered. It's actually moved over by one. So either I would move it back over, or I would just add one on this side. I'm not or add on to this side, whatever I needed. I'm not entirely certain. The other thing I would have done is I would have added support posts where it connects, because those would be the weakest points of that particular structure. The other thing I would have changed is I probably would have done something more decorative with the ceiling, because having just a flat ceiling when you look up like this is kind of boring, but it does serve a purpose, so I'm not going to fuss too much about it. It's more just, if I were to do it myself, this is how I would do it. These over here, these were built out of necessity, because I noticed after I painted the underside of all of the roofs white with just the wood texture, the painted wood texture, and they were actually clipping through right here. So I did this out of necessity to kind of hide that clipping issue, and I did it on the other side just to make it look even. Off to the sides, these are meant to be bathrooms. Again, I do apologize. I didn't get to the fixtures. I probably should have done the fixtures for the bathrooms, but it's okay. So we have another one on this side, and this is, I'm not exactly certain what the one on that side is for, mostly because you have perfect access to the one on this side without the need for it. So if I were to do this again, we're going to go ahead and move into the kitchen so I can talk about it for just a moment. Behind this wall was actually kind of like a crawl pantry, kind of like a waiter's pantry, if you would. It was very common in old houses, exactly as you would find it. So I have no issue with it coming into this build. But if I were to rebuild it myself, I probably would have excised this bathroom entirely, or made it smaller, made it maybe like a storage closet. I'm not quite sure, but I would have harvested back that space so that this isn't just coming up to here for this nice little crawl space. I would have made this into a proper pantry. However, that being the case, I may have just made it into a larger kitchen, maybe like opened up this wall or something. And then down here, I would have opened this wall up as well, just completely taken out this wall and just let this be a set of steps leading down into a pantry cellar. So because of that, the kitchen actually came out really nice. The wall right here, I tried to do everything I could to make it kind of hide the fact that there's not really anything behind it. It's just kind of a void now. It's just negative space. And realistically, that's the best you can do in situations like that. But the problem is, as old as this house is, unless you went back there and kind of properly treated the wood, the aging wood, and the aging materials behind that wall. Once you brick that in, you are basically asking for rodents and pests of other kinds to kind of make nests back there. So trying to use that negative space as best as possible is always the best option. The windows here, this was more out of necessity as well because the previous method had a lot of extra windows here that were trying to go like wall to wall, but it ended up with this weird, ugly single post coming up the center, and I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me. So this was the only structural change I made in the entire house. This was this was more to create the solidarity of this one single solid window that it doesn't even open. It's just casement windows letting in light, and it built out this wonderful little centerpiece. And this is actually how I realized that this was not centered, but it built out this wonderful little centerpiece that looks a lot nicer in the context of what we were trying to build. Going over here to the left, to the right, there's nothing there. If you actually look outside, there is physically nothing there. It just goes to an empty wall. So it would have been nice to have a window here, but I chose not to change it because I changed this. So that's more on me. That being the case, the fact that there are so many windows in this house and there wasn't one chosen to be put there, a little bit strange, but I'm going to give it a passing grade because it's understandable. Someone who was building this house previously may have had plans to put something back there and then said, wait, no, stop. We don't have the resources to do this. We'll just leave it as blank and we'll just get it done, get it finished in. And then when we come into this room, this would probably be a primary bedroom of some kind. I didn't talk about it, but there is a nursery down there. It was pre-finished, so I didn't talk about it, but it's fully furnished. Everything's good to go in it. And above it directly, to just go up the stairs and come around. This would be a primary bedroom. This would probably actually be a master bedroom. The only thing that I would change here is that I would want it to have a bathroom that's very, very accessible to it. Having a bathroom that's close, but having to go down these flights of steps to get to it is a little bit inconvenient. So that being the case, if I were to remove that one, I would obviously have that one there because you really have to have it there. But I would change the geometry of these stairs. I'm not sure how, mostly because I didn't actually build it, so I didn't really create the plans for it. But I would change the geometry of these stairs to kind of more suit exactly what you need with this bedroom here, as well as these rooms over here, and being able to still access it from the foyer and the portals. So we're going to close this door. We're going to move on. In these rooms, these were pass-through rooms. So I would have to say that these would have to be like playrooms. Something along those lines. So if we actually go down, I am skipping a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just cancel that out. But it does bring up an important topic that these are pass-through rooms. That means they cannot be private rooms. So this one up here is a bedroom. That's perfectly fine. This one over here, I imagine this one being either a very, very grand bedroom, but I don't really think it fits that kind of topic because it has these wonderful, wonderful windows with this crazy view looking out over the garden, and of course this walkway that goes right past, which means it's not very private. So it doesn't really work well as a bedroom, but it can be a bedroom if you wanted to stretch the definition of your bedroom. So this room, I actually envisioned it as being a music room. You could absolutely fit a grand piano over here in the corner. You could have drum kits, guitars. You could have like violins, flutes, woodwinds. You could have brass. A lot of different things, mostly because this room is just so large, and it would have some really nice acoustics where the glass is kind of bouncing the sound back into the room. And the room, as long as these walls here are sound dampened, in other words, they had 2 layers of drywall to them, this room would be excellent for use as just a music room. So that's kind of what I imagined it as. That's what I would have decorated it as well. This room and this room can interconnect. That means that they need to have a similar purpose. So this room, I imagined, would be a home library, wherein you would have lots and lots of books and shelves, things to research and do. You'd have chairs kind of over here that kind of face this way, or maybe even like a love seat, somewhere to sit to read the book that you're looking into. And then, of course, in here would be more of a private study where you have like all these wonderful windows that kind of look out over the more wooded side of the property. And of course, you have like it's off the property, obviously, but you have like maybe like a groundskeeper shed over here. And it's a little bit more private on this side without being excessively so. So I would imagine you'd have like a wonderful desk right here, maybe an extra private book collection over here, and you really wouldn't put too much else in this room because there's not really reason to. The flow of this room passes along the windows anyway, so you'd only need like a little bit of furniture here in the side. Therefore, I decided that this would be maybe like a private study. So if we move upstairs with the thoughts in mind of how these rooms kind of interconnect, they can't really be used for private purposes, but they have a purpose to them that can be used. Moving to these rooms, they don't really make a lot of sense in context of how a house would really flow. Because these rooms, they flow front to back. And of course, you have this stairwell hallway here in the back. So I imagine this room here would probably be maybe like a less private study, or maybe like a I would actually say that this room in here would have to be like a playroom of some kind, maybe like a game room, and then the other side would be more mature type of game room, like putting like a billiards table in the center here, that kind of thing. There really wasn't a whole lot of actually a billiards. This would be a great billiards room now that I think about it. But I didn't really have like a whole lot of plans for what you could do with these two rooms, mostly because they're so transitory, and the fact that their flow goes directly through them means that there's not really a lot of uses you can apply to them that make sense in context. And so let's go ahead and go up the stairwell. We'll go up into this upper area. This would honestly be really nice as just a little sitting room, maybe like a tea room, that kind of thing, here at the end of this hallway. And there's not really much else you could do with this room. And again, it's because it's open to the stairwell below. It kind of continues that stairwell's functionality and purpose, and its flow just passes through. There is no necessary termination to the room itself. It would just be a transitory room, maybe like an art gallery, maybe have like a couple little places to sit, to eat like little snack cakes or things like that. And mostly that would just be because you wouldn't be wanting to run up and down these stairs every time you wanted to go get something to eat. You would want like little snacks or little like cups of tea or cups of coffee, what have you, here available for you at the top of the stairwell rather than having to run all the way down and all the way back up. And of course, this upper section, this upper echelon of the house, this is very clearly an add-on to the house. There wasn't really a lot of thought put into how these rooms needed to function in context with the rest of the house, not from a design perspective. This is actually a wonderful, wonderful addition that the developer of this mod actually included, because it has that very I'm going to add this on, and this is going to be so-and-so's room, because the change in the floor level, this goes onto the roof over top of those two rooms that you pass through, and a little bit onto the roof of the foyer. Ceiling, rather. I'm sorry, the ceiling of the foyer, whereas this is on the level of this back here, where it's kind of like this used to be a just a single tower by itself, with like this being the terminus room at the top of the stairs, and maybe it was a tea room or something like that, just at the top of the stairs here. But this hallway and these rooms over here were, I started to say bedrooms, but that is what I was what they are. But these rooms over here were kind of added on afterthought. They weren't created for the explicit purpose of being there to begin with, and that's actually wonderful because of the design philosophy that would go in place with like Queen Anne and Victorian and Gothic architecture, especially during the stages where the United States, especially, was being first built out, where not a lot of funds and capability and resources were available up front, but anyone with an axe can go just chop down a tree and use that tree however they feel. As long as it's their land, of course. But usually, when someone was given land, they were given lots and lots of land. We're not talking about a situation where they only have like a few trees to their name, or maybe like half an acre, like you see today. No, we're talking about when you went to go purchase land or a deed for land, it it was an insult if it was less than 20 acres. So you had plenty of wood, plenty of rock, plenty of natural resources at your disposal to do things like this, where you build your family a house with the sweat of your brow and the strength of your back, that kind of thing. So adding on rooms like this on top of an existing structure, that was nothing. You would just get the family together. You'd say, okay, family, we are tearing off this roof and we're putting more rooms on top of it because Aunt May is coming to stay with us. Things like that. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. My hair is still very, very, very squeaky. So as we go down here, there's this level change. And of course, like I said, this has more to do with the way that the house was designed versus how the house is now built. And this is actually something I'm not absolutely certain I would change because it is a very... what's the word? Has a lot of character. It adds a lot of character. It adds some history there. It adds like the mystique of, okay, why are these levels different? And I've actually lived in houses like this in the American South. There was a house that I lived in where every floor was on a different level, and that's because every room was being added on after the fact, or the purpose of that room was changing. For example, the kitchen was a step down from the living room, and I found out from a neighbor that the kitchen actually used to be a back porch. And so it had like that step down going down directly onto the concrete of the foundation. But then when it was built out, that concrete remained the primary level of that room. So you step down from the floor joists of the living room down onto the bare concrete of the foundation. So there is that little step down going into that kitchen, and the same thing's happening here. We have this little step down. Actually, it's a fairly large step down. I think that was 16 inches that they dropped down to get onto the ceiling of the lower level, and that's actually a brilliant idea. When you tear off a roof, you'll have all those ceiling joists that can still be used as floor joists if they're reinforced. And of course, you would have to like double check your beaming and double check your all of your joints and things of that nature. But it's very, very possible, and it's not a bad idea. So I would assume that there was once like a roof that kind of butted against this wall right here. And then like this extra portal was created later after the roof was removed in order to create a hallway on top of these ceiling joists for all these extra rooms. And because of that, there's like that character and that history that's there for what's going on here. And of course, in here we have a bathroom, and we actually have 3 extra rooms. I would assume this would be like another playroom, just something that would be here for the entertainment of the other 2 rooms, but it could be a large bedroom. This one also very much just a medium-sized bedroom, a little bit smaller than the previous one, but it is still a good-sized bedroom. These nice big windows look out over the front yard. And of course, you have the smallest room here. Same idea. Got the windows looking out over the front yard. But this could be just like, a single occupant bedroom. Absolutely. Someone that doesn't really spend a lot of time in the house is more interested in going out and going into the world rather than staying in the home, that kind of thing. So, in talking about the design philosophy regarding the materials used, and the colors used and things of that nature, I tried to keep all of the wallpaper thought and consideration more towards what was here originally. And now I do know that I am fully aware that I didn't actually get everything fully spot on, but that's because I didn't want it that way. I felt that if there was a wallpaper that was made many, many, many years ago, it may not have a modern day equivalent. And that is actually something I've ran into before, where I wanted to directly replace a wallpaper that was in a home for a home I was working on with my grandfather years and years ago. We were trying to exactly replicate the exact look of that house, but we found out the company that made that original wallpaper had gone under like 80 years ago. Like it was crazy long ago. And so we had to kind of work out something else that was very, very similar, but not quite on point. So I gave it some thought every time I would find one of these wallpapers and I need to replace it. I either wanted to brighten the room, either wanted to change how the room felt with the hallway here, because this was originally vertical stripes. I didn't really care for the vertical stripes because it made it feel shorter. It didn't really accentuate its length. That's what the shiplap was ended up being for. So I could accentuate the height at the bottom and the length up here at the top. And when it came to rooms like this, yes, it's physically the same wallpaper. I just didn't like it was so dark. That's all. So a lot of the design philosophy was more to just change it in little tiny ways that made sense in context and gave it a little bit more history, so that when someone came into this house in the future to redo it, maybe 50 years from now, uh, they are looking at it and there's a story as to why the wallpaper changed from the first wallpaper, and maybe there's a new story as to why the wallpaper needs to change again. Maybe the wallpaper that I used in here, I replaced it with this because I couldn't find the wallpaper that was originally here, and this was as close as I could get. Well, in the future, maybe this print can't be bought anymore. I mean, this is a very intricate, very difficult to manufacture print. So if this print wasn't available anymore, how would they change it in the future? You know, it kind of creates that rolling story for what is going on in the home. And of course, here in the foyer, I chose to actually do everything in this one wallpaper in order to maintain the feeling that was put forward by the original developer of the mod. This was more in spirit as a thank you to the mod developer for creating this mod, because there's a lot of nuance to this home. It's a very difficult home to work in, especially with the context of House Flipper. But the fact that it follows a lot of the rules and context that you would expect from a house like this, from Queen Anne, from Gothic, from Victorian, there's a lot of context there that really bleeds into subtext, really, now that I think about it. There's just a lot going on here that isn't explained and doesn't need to be. This is a house that quietly tells you its story from the walls. It just whispers it to you. It just whispers you its lore. And to that end, I chose to keep everything rolling. I want the next person who comes into this house to have my lore whispered to them, just as this house's lore was whispered to me as I redid it. Have a good one, my dudes. Cheers.